On the eve of the wedding, my fiancé's childhood sweetheart knelt before me, her pregnant belly prominent. The entire room gasped, and I looked at Ethan beside me. He irritably loosened his tie. I had too much to drink that night and accidentally got her pregnant. Chloe has a uterine malformation. If she doesn't keep this baby now, she won't be able to have children in the future. I looked down at Chloe, kneeling on the ground, a smile playing on her lips as she deliberately thrust out her pregnant belly. "Sister," she said, raising her teacup higher, "I'm willing to be his second wife. Ethan said he's worried I'd have a difficult pregnancy, so he wants to bring me home to live with him after the wedding. I'll be counting on you to take care of me then." Ethan leaned close to my ear. "Anyway, we'll be having children after we're married. Why don't you just see it as a chance to practice being a mother in advance?" I let out a soft laugh, took the teacup, and gently helped Chloe to her feet. "The floor is cold. You wouldn't want to harm your baby." That night, they went on a very public date, as if the whole farce had never happened. The next day, at the wedding venue, but called frantically, "Grace, why wasn't I informed about the change in wedding venue?" I was adjusting my white wedding gown in the mirror when, beside me, his brother, Julian, spoke up. "Your sister-in-law is changing. I'll send you the location later." I took a deep breath, gently placing the engagement ring on the dressing table. Wedding streamers and balloons still drifted around the room. The wedding was set for daybreak. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Ethan. "Chloe forgot her maternity pillow. Bring it over quickly. You know the address." Chloe lived in the Westwood, and Ethan often went there, citing caring for a friend as his reason. I had objected before, but he'd said, "Chloe is like my sister. She's new to the city and isn't used to things. I'm just helping her out. Don't overthink it, okay?" My fingers replied uncontrollably, "Okay." Standing at the apartment door, I rang the doorbell. Ethan, who opened the door, was only wearing pajama bottoms. He visibly froze when he saw me. "Chloe is taking a bath. Just give me the item and head back." He reached out to take it. The man before me no longer resembled the one who had knelt at my family home, begging to marry me. Only impatience for me remained. The sound of water splashing came from the bathroom, and Chloe's cloying voice floated out, "Ethan, hurry and help me with my body lotion." Ethan turned and hurried into the room. Chloe emerged, wrapped in a bath towel, and dramatically covered her mouth when she saw me. "Oh dear. Grace, what brings you here?" She turned to Ethan and pouted. "It's all your fault. You made me expose myself." Ethan chuckled and ruffled her hair. "You're both girls. What's there to be afraid of?" This intimate gesture was exactly the same as when he proposed to me. I clenched my fists. "Ethan, is this what you meant by just taking care of her?" Ethan froze for a moment and was about to explain to me. Chloe suddenly clutched her stomach and cried out, "Ah, the baby kicked me." Ethan immediately rushed to support her, looking anxious, his movements so practiced, as if they'd rehearsed it countless times. "Chloe needs to rest now. Don't cause a scene. Tomorrow is the wedding. Go back and get ready." Unreasonable? Half a year ago, when I had a fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit, Ethan's words, when he dropped an important meeting to rush to my side, still echoed in my ears. "Grace, marry me, and you'll never have to be sensible. With me, you can always be as impulsive as you like." I believed him, but the scene before me felt like a harsh slap in the face. Chloe tugged at Ethan's sleeve, feigning distress. "Ethan, maybe I should just move out." "No!" Ethan interrupted sharply. "The doctor said the first 3 months are the most critical." He turned to me, his voice icy. "Grace, I'm keeping both the baby and Chloe. If you don't agree, we can postpone the wedding." I looked at this man who, to marry me, had once waited all night in a torrential downpour, and suddenly felt he was a complete stranger. After a pause, I yelled, "I don't want to marry you anymore." Ethan clearly froze, then grabbed my hand, a hint of helplessness in his voice. "Look, I'll spend every weekend with Chloe, and the rest of the time I'll be home with you. Is that acceptable?" he added, his tone hardening. "Grace, this is the biggest concession I can make. Don't push me." I took a deep breath and said calmly, "There's no need to sound so put upon. Once you leave me, you can spend as much time with her as you want. Let's not waste any more of each other's time." Ethan glared at me, through clenched teeth. "Are you sure? The family has a new project recently. If news of the heir's broken engagement gets out, I wonder if you can handle the consequences." I shook off Ethan's hand and turned to leave. I hadn't expected that as soon as I reached the neighborhood, urgent footsteps would suddenly sound behind me. "Grace!" Ethan caught up to me and grabbed my wrist. Don't act so high and mighty. The passing crowd stopped and stared. Chloe also chased after us, her belly prominent, and knelt breathlessly before me. Grace, please let me have this baby. The child is innocent. Whispers immediately broke out around us. So, it's the mistress forcing her way in. Look how she's cornering that pregnant woman. How shameless. I trembled all over, wanting to defend myself but unable to utter a sound. Chloe seized the opportunity, pulling at my sleeve, tears streaming down her face. It's not easy for me to have a child. Please, just let us be together. In the chaos, someone shoved me hard, and I lost my footing, falling to the ground. Ethan's first instinct was to shield Chloe, leaving me feeling utterly alone and vulnerable in the crowd. All right, stop making a spectacle of yourself here. Just leave. Chloe and I need to rest. Ethan looked down at me, his eyes filled with disdain. Grace, you look utterly ridiculous right now. With that, he put his arm around Chloe and walked away, leaving me humiliated amidst the pointing fingers and whispers of the crowd. Just then, Mrs. Margaret's call suddenly came through. Grace, I've heard all about Chloe's pregnancy. Mrs. Margaret's falsely amiable voice came from the other end of the line. Ethan was indeed in the wrong, and I've already reprimanded him. You shouldn't take it too hard. In a marriage alliance between prominent families, things can't always go perfectly. Some things are best just overlooked. My knuckles were white from gripping the phone. I remained silent. Chloe also said she won't interfere with your wedding. Mrs. Margaret continued. Once the baby is born, it will be registered under your name. Our family will compensate you handsomely. And as for your father's project, I cut her off, my voice trembling. No need. There was a brief silence on the other end. Then her tone abruptly changed. Grace, don't be ungrateful. If it weren't for your father's standing, do you really think someone like you could enter our Chi family's doors? I bit down hard on my lip until I tasted blood. You're right, Mrs. Margaret. I was indeed marrying above my station. Let's cancel the wedding. I hung up the phone, leaned against the cold elevator wall, trembling all over. So, in the eyes of the Chi family, I was merely a pawn to be manipulated as they pleased. I forced myself to stand, dragging my twisted ankle. Each step sent a searing pain through me. Just as I felt I could no longer stand, the world suddenly spun, and a pair of strong arms lifted me off my feet. So eager to be Mrs. Chi? The man's deep voice held a hint of amusement. I looked up at him, Ethan's half-brother, the most enigmatic heir of the Chi family. Julian's profound gaze fell upon my disheveled face. My heart skipped a beat. Grace, I've waited for you for so many years. Will you marry me? I dragged my exhausted body back home. As soon as I announced my decision to cancel the wedding, William immediately smashed his teacup. Terminate all investments in the Chi's new project immediately. Eleanor hugged me close, her eyes red-rimmed. Grace, a man like that isn't worthy of you. Late that night, as soon as I lay down, I scrolled through Chloe's social media post. In the photo, Ethan was gently resting his head on her swollen belly, his gaze focused in a way I had never seen before. The caption read, "Having such a wonderful father is a blessing for me and our child." The comment section was filled with well wishes. We already knew you two were a match made in heaven from the last gathering. Congrats, a perfect couple. Truly meant to be. My fingers trembled uncontrollably. What accident after drinking? It was clearly a carefully orchestrated deception. I commented with a cold laugh, finally out in the open. I wish you both a son and a daughter. My phone immediately rang off the hook. Ethan's furious roar came through. Grace, what do you mean by that? Are you only satisfied after ruining Chloe's reputation? In the background, Chloe was crying piteously. I calmly hung up and put my phone on silent. The next day at the wedding venue, I stood in my designer wedding gown, ready to walk onto the stage. But I distinctly heard Ethan and Chloe's snickers. I just won't go on stage. Let's see how the He family handles a wedding without a groom. Chloe covered her mouth, chuckling softly. You're so bad. Do you think if she cries later, someone will take pity on her and run up to be the groom? I let out a cold laugh, raised my hand to signal the lighting engineer, and a spotlight suddenly illuminated the two of them. All eyes in the room immediately fixated on Ethan's astonished face. Ethan. I slowly walked towards the main stage, the microphone carrying my voice to every corner of the room. Whispering behind people's backs is so boring. Why don't you share with everyone how you managed to get Chloe pregnant while we were engaged? The entire venue erupted in an uproar. Chloe's face flushed then paled. Ethan, my stomach hurts so much. Our baby won't make it. Ethan's face turned ashen. He lunged onto the stage. "Grace, I'll kill you. You bitch." Just as he raised his hand, a long, slender hand firmly intercepted him. I turned my head. Julian, in a black formal suit, spoke with a cold expression. "Since when has the Chi family had a rule that allows someone to lay hands on his sister-in-law?" Julian's voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the entire wedding venue instantly. His long, slender fingers gripped Ethan's wrist like iron tongs, with such force that Ethan's face turned pale. I stood behind Julian, watching the once arrogant man's current humiliated state. Fine beads of sweat broke out on his forehead. His lips trembled, unable to utter a single word. "Bro, you," Ethan began with difficulty. "Address her as sister-in-law," Julian interrupted coldly, tightening his grip slightly. All the guests stared wide-eyed. The air seemed to freeze. Flashbulbs popped continuously, everyone holding up their phones to capture this dramatic scene. Chloe slumped into a chair, her face ashen, her carefully styled curls now plastered messily to her face, like a grotesque clown. "No, impossible." Ethan finally struggled free, stumbling back a few steps. "When did she get together with you?" He whirled around to glare at me, his eyes filled with savage hatred. "Grace, you planned this all along, didn't you? You wanted to get revenge on me." I said nothing, just watched him quietly, a faint smile playing on my lips. Julian, however, let out a low chuckle. He reached out and gently grazed my lower back, the warmth of his fingertips seeping through my wedding gown, making me shiver slightly. "Ethan," he said, his voice low and tinged with mockery, "watch your tone from now on. Besides, I was the one who fell for her first. Understand?" I froze and turned to look at Julian. He looked down at me, his dark eyes holding an emotion I couldn't decipher. Memories suddenly flooded back. 10 years ago, at the graduation party, I'd had too much to drink and was drowsily leaning on someone's shoulder. "Julian," I mumbled, "why are you always so serious?" He was silent for a moment, then said, "Because when I look at you, I have to hold back my laughter." While studying abroad, I would occasionally receive an anonymous package containing stomach medicine and herbal tea, along with a note that read, "Don't always eat instant ramen." I thought Ethan had sent them and was touched for a long time. 3 months ago, at my engagement party with Ethan, Julian, as the eldest son of the Chi family, stood in a corner holding a glass of wine, but his gaze was constantly fixed on me. At the time, I thought he was just uncomfortable in such settings. But now, I opened my mouth, but didn't know what to say. Julian's fingers gently stroked my waist, as if to comfort me, yet also like a silent declaration. "Grace," he whispered, his voice audible only to me, "why do you think I proposed to you the day after you called off your engagement?" My heart violently skipped a beat. Ethan, standing nearby, heard every word clearly, his face instantly contorted. "Bro, are you insane? Is a woman like this even worth your slap?" Julian backhanded him across the face with such force that Ethan fell straight to the ground. The entire venue fell silent. Julian looked down at him, his voice as cold as ice. "I'll say it again, address her as sister-in-law." Ethan clutched his face, his eyes filled with incredulous humiliation. "Grace, do you think you can rest easy just because you've latched onto my brother? Let me tell you something." "Tell me what?" I interrupted with a smile, raising my hand to signal a staff member. "Why don't we watch this first?" The big screen suddenly lit up, and the footage playing made the entire venue erupt instantly. In the video, Ethan had his arm around Chloe's waist, whispering in her ear, "Once I get the He family's investment, I'll dump that foolish woman." The date indicated it was the second week after our engagement. This is fake. Ethan spun around to face the guests below. "It's a fabrication. Grace is slandering me." I let out a soft chuckle and pulled a USB drive from my clutch. "Want to see more fabricated videos? Like the ones of you both in my apartment on my birthday." "Enough, Mrs. Margaret suddenly stood up from the guest seating, her perfectly maintained face now contorted with fury. She was wearing a designer evening gown and a priceless diamond necklace around her neck, but her expression at this moment was as ugly as a common shrew's. "Julian," she shrieked, her nails almost digging into her palms. "Is this how you indulge outsiders in humiliating your own brother?" The entire venue fell silent instantly, all eyes turning to them. Julian didn't even spare her a glance, simply taking my hand gently, his thumb brushing my palm, a silent reassurance. "Mother," he said, his voice soft, yet cold as ice, "are you sure you want to discuss family matters here?" Mrs. Margaret's face instantly changed. Her fingers, adorned with vibrant red nail polish, trembled slightly. She certainly knew the threat in Julian's words. She knew better than anyone what he held in his hands. But under everyone's watchful eyes, she couldn't back down. Family matters? She sneered, walking with sharp clicks of her heels to the front of the stage, pointing a finger at my face. This bitch publicly humiliated Ethan. And you're still defending her? Julian, has she bewitched you? The guests below gasped audibly. Before I could speak, Julian had already let out a low chuckle. He unhurriedly pulled an envelope from his inner jacket pocket and handed it to the MC beside him. Show this to everyone. Mrs. Margaret's pupils constricted abruptly. The big screen lit up, showing Mrs. Margaret slipping a thick wad of cash to a doctor. Her voice was clearly audible. Grace's medical report needs to be altered to say infertile. I want her to never be able to hold her head up in our Chi family. Make sure it's absolutely flawless. The entire venue exploded. Mrs. Margaret's face instantly turned ashen. She stumbled back 2 steps. Teach this. This is a fabrication. Julian, how dare you slander me? Julian watched her expressionlessly. Do you need me to invite this doctor here? He's already given a statement to the police. Mrs. Margaret trembled all over, strands of her meticulously styled updo falling loose. She looked utterly disheveled. I stood by, watching the once haughty socialite in her current state. A flicker of pity stirred within me, but only a flicker. Mrs. Margaret, I said softly, you went to great lengths just to force me to break off the engagement. She suddenly looked up and glared at me, her eyes filled with venomous hatred. Grace, don't get cocky. I'm telling you, the Chi family, the family is under my control now. Julian interrupted coldly. Mother, you're getting old. It's time for you to retire. He raised a hand to signal, and 2 bodyguards immediately stepped forward, taking Mrs. Margaret by each arm, assisting her. Take the lady back to the family estate to rest, Julian said dispassionately. Without my permission, she is not to set foot outside the main gate. Mrs. Margaret finally broke down, screaming hysterically, Julian, I am your mother. How dare you? Her voice cut off abruptly, because Julian finally looked at her, with a gaze so cold it instantly silenced her. I have only one mother, and she passed away 30 years ago. Who do you think you are? He gave a slight smirk. The true outsiders in the Chi family are you and Ethan. I advise you to start thinking about how you're going to explain his true identity to him. The words were like a brutal slap, striking Mrs. Margaret's face. Her legs buckled, and she collapsed to the floor, her makeup smeared, all traces of her noblewoman's dignity gone. The entire venue was silent, everyone speechless, stunned by the shocking twist. Chloe suddenly let out a piercing shriek. Ah, my baby! Ethan, save our baby! Clutching her stomach, she slid from the chair, curling up on the floor. A stark, vivid red stain spread across her light-colored evening gown. Her fingers desperately clutched at the skirt, her knuckles white, her face streaked with tears. She looked utterly distraught. The scene immediately erupted into chaos. Oh my God! She's bleeding! Call an ambulance! This. Could she be having a miscarriage? Guests panicked, some screaming and backing away, while others frantically pulled out their phones to dial 911. Ethan's face dramatically changed. He rushed over and hugged Chloe. Chloe, hold on. He looked up and glared at me, his eyes filled with venomous hatred. Grace, if anything happens to Chloe or the baby, I swear I'll never forgive you. I watched the farce with cold eyes, slowly walking up to Chloe and gracefully kneeling down. The skirt of my wedding gown fanned out on the floor, like a blooming flower. I reached out, gently stroking Chloe's sweat-drenched face, and whispered in her ear, in a voice only we could hear, stop pretending. There's no baby in your belly. Chloe's eyes widened abruptly. She even forgot to feign pain, her lips trembling. What did you say? I smiled faintly and raised my voice so everyone nearby could hear. I said, you're not pregnant at all. All the prenatal checkup reports from the past 2 months are fake. The entire venue fell silent instantly, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Chloe's face instantly went ashen, white as paper. She frantically looked at Ethan. She's lying. I really am pregnant with your child. Look, I'm bleeding. I let out a soft laugh, pulled out a document from my clutch, and unfolded it for everyone to see. This is a report personally issued by the head of the Metropolitan Hospital Obstetrics Department. It states that Mrs. Uterus shows no signs of embryonic implantation whatsoever. I paused, my gaze falling on the bloodstain on her skirt. As for this blood, if I'm not mistaken, it must be the fake blood packet you prepared in advance, right? Chloe trembled all over, her eyes darting around frantically. And no, that's not it. Ethan snatched the report, flipping through it in disbelief. This is impossible. We clearly bribed the doctor? I finished his sentence and pulled out a voice recorder from my bag. Too bad the doctor you bribed is my high school classmate's cousin. I pressed play, and Chloe's voice clearly emanated from the recording. As long as you change the pregnancy test results to positive, money is no issue. Ethan's face instantly turned livid. He whirled around to face Chloe. You lied to me? Chloe completely panicked. She grabbed Ethan's arm. Ethan, listen to me. I really do love you. I was just afraid you'd leave me. Ethan violently shook her off, his eyes filled with disgust. Bitch. Chloe collapsed to the ground in a humiliated heap, her carefully applied makeup smeared, all traces of her pitiful charm gone. I stood up, looking down at her. Chloe, do you know something? From the first time you faked morning sickness, I knew you were putting on an act. I leaned down and whispered in her ear, because real morning sickness doesn't look as phony as your performance. Chloe finally broke down, screaming hysterically, Grace, you deserve to die a horrible death. Julian, at the right moment, put his arm around my waist and cast a cold glance at her. Security, please escort this young lady out. Four black-suited bodyguards immediately stepped forward, lifting the still screaming and struggling Chloe, and unceremoniously dragged her out of the wedding venue. The entire venue was silent, everyone speechless, stunned by the continuous twists and turns. Ethan stood frozen in place, as if struck by lightning, his face ashen, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. He looked at Chloe being dragged away, then at me, finally letting his gaze fall on Julian, his eyes filled with incredulous fear. I gently tugged at Julian's sleeve. He looked down at me, a hint of a smile flashing in his eyes, then looked up at Mrs. Margaret in the audience, whose face was livid. Ethan. Julian's voice was unhurried, yet it hung over everyone like a blade. Aren't you curious about your identity? How about today, in front of everyone, we let your mother explain it clearly to you? Mrs. Margaret suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly across the floor. Julian, you, mother. Julian interrupted her, his eyes as cold as ice. Are you sure you want me to speak for you? Mrs. Margaret's hands clenched tightly onto the tablecloth, her knuckles white. Her gaze frantically swept over all the guests present, the faces that once flattered her now filled with shock and scrutiny. I don't know what nonsense you're talking about. She desperately clung to her last shred of dignity, her voice trembling uncontrollably. Julian let out a soft chuckle, pulled a document from his inner jacket pocket, and handed it to the MC beside him. Show this to everyone. The big screen lit up, displaying a paternity test report. On it, clearly written, were the words Ethan and the head of the Chi share no biological father-son relationship. Ethan staggered back 2 steps, knocking over a champagne tower. Glass shattered everywhere, just like his world collapsing around him. And no, this is impossible. He lunged at Mrs. Margaret, grabbing her shoulders and shaking her frantically. Mom, tell me this is fake. I'm Dad's son. Mrs. Margaret's face was ashen, like death, her carefully applied makeup streaked by tears, revealing the aged wrinkles beneath. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Still don't understand? Julian watched the farce with cold eyes. Your mother, back then, to secure her position, used someone else's child to impersonate a Chi family bloodline. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the dumbfounded guests below. And she was a pawn your mother placed by your side from the very beginning. My heart jolted. I turned sharply to Julian. He squeezed my palm, a signal for me to stay calm. Impossible! Ethan shrieked hysterically. Chloe loves me. She took $3 million from your mother. Julian cut him off. Her mission was to ensure you remained under her thumb after the wedding. Clearly, she miscalculated. Ethan was struck as if by lightning, collapsing to the ground, his expensive suit soaked with champagne and littered with glass shards. He looked utterly pathetic. His eyes were fixed on the big screen, watching Chloe tremble as she confessed everything on camera. His face shifted from white to green, finally settling into an ashen pallor. Mom! He suddenly surged up, grabbing Mrs. Margaret's wrist with such force that she cried out in pain. Tell me this isn't real. Tell me. Mrs. Margaret stumbled 2 steps from his tug, her carefully styled hair falling loose, her makeup long since smeared by tears. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. "You tricked me?" Ethan's voice was already hoarse, like a trapped beast's final wail. "You made me abandon everything like an idiot. For a child that didn't even exist?" Mrs. Margaret finally broke down. She violently shook off Ethan's hand and shrieked hysterically, "Do you think I wanted to? If your damned father hadn't already written his will, leaving everything to Julian, why would I resort to such a drastic measure?" She pointed at Julian, her eyes filled with venom. "It's all him. He forced me into it. He knew all along that you weren't of the Chi family bloodline. Yet he just stood by, watching coldly, waiting to see us, mother and son, make a fool of ourselves." Ethan staggered back 2 steps, as if truly seeing his mother for the first time. His gaze slowly shifted to me, and a flicker of hope suddenly appeared in his eyes. "Grace." He lunged forward, kneeling before me, his hands desperately clutching the hem of my wedding gown. "Can you please forgive me? I was deceived by them. I had no idea Chloe was a fake, or about my true identity. You're the only one I love." His fingers were white from the effort, and the expensive fabric was stretched out of shape by his pulling. I looked down at him. The man who had been so arrogant yesterday now knelt at my feet like a stray dog, his eyes filled with desperate pleading. Julian's hand rested on my waist at that opportune moment, offering silent support. "Ethan," I said softly, "do you remember 3 months ago, when I had a high fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit and called you, begging you to come see me?" Ethan froze. "You said you were in a meeting and couldn't make it." I smiled faintly. "Later, I found out you'd taken Chloe to an amusement park that day." His face instantly turned ashen. Ethan's lips trembled, tears and snot smearing his face. I was wrong. Please give me another chance." "A chance?" Julian suddenly spoke, his voice cold as ice. "Do you deserve one?" He raised a hand to signal, and 2 bodyguards immediately stepped forward to seize Ethan. "No! Grace! Please!" Ethan struggled frantically, his voice already hoarse. I turned and linked my arm through Julian's, not sparing Ethan another glance. The wedding continues. Music swelled, and Ethan's cries were drowned out by the guests' applause. Mrs. Margaret slumped to the ground, muttering to herself like a madwoman, all traces of her former nobility and elegance gone. As we reached the end of the red carpet, Julian suddenly stopped and whispered in my ear, "Feel better now?" I looked at the man who had laid out such an elaborate trap for me and gently nodded. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about this story, feel free to share them in the comments section.